So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our video of Atmakaraka, Venus, in the second house of your birth chart, as in what happens when Venus becomes the Atmakaraka, which is the planet closest to the 30th degree. And it could be even at 10 degrees, 15 degrees, 20 degrees, doesn't matter. It is the very closest planet becomes your Atmakaraka. And of course, we don't include Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Rahu, Ketu in these particular schemes. Only the basic 7 bodies. Okay, and as always, if you do not know, if you have Venus as your Atmakaraka, what sign it's in, what nakshatra it's in, along with all your astrology details, you can check out the links here at kairosastrology.com, where you'll find my books, reports, consultations, and link to my academy, Vedic Astrology Academy, where I've just uploaded the 2025 monthly horoscope for all the ascendants. Now, Venus as the Atmakaraka. So remember, Atmakaraka is that planet who's here to teach you some lessons. Okay? So it's not like Atmakaraka is just there to show you your personality and show you your significance of who you are. That's like a surface part of it. Deeper part of it, okay, is that it is here to teach you some lessons so you can burn your karma off. It doesn't have to be negative or positive. See, when we say it's here to teach you lessons, the lesson may not be as harsh as you think. Like, for example, you in past lives never wanted to get married, never wanted to have children. Okay? And it's not like you avoided, you ignored those people in your life. Maybe you just never wanted. Now the Atma says you have to go through this process of having a consort, having your Shiva, having your Parvati. You have to, in order for you to understand something about life. So we're going to make this certain planet an Atmakaraka so you can learn those lessons. So in this life, whether it's Sun, Mercury, doesn't matter. Person will engage towards those things and will learn the process of those things, right? So Venus, as the Atmakaraka, is in the second house of family, wealth, money, assets, collecting things, collecting valuables. And you got to understand, when I'm talking about Venus here, I am not looking at the fact that how your Venus is placed. In your particular case, Venus could be with 4 planets. Venus could be with 3 planets, 2 planets, and that is going to change the dynamics of this particular Venus. So you have to take this with a grain of salt. But the biggest lesson you will learn, okay, look at the sign that Venus is placed in. Okay, whether it's the sign of Gemini, Cancer, Taurus, doesn't matter. Whatever sign Venus is placed in, you will make a mistake of giving advice and suggestion related to that person that represents that sign, and then you will be blamed for it. And then you will learn the lesson of withholding information. For example, let's just say you're an Aries ascendant. Venus is in the second house in Taurus. When you will give advice to family, maybe you'll give them investment advice, banking advice, food advice, and they will blame you that you told us to do this. It's bad. On a very small scale, it could be, you told us to go to this restaurant because it was the best restaurant. It turned out to be the most horrible food. Why would you do this? Today we wasted our money because of you. So what is happening? You're getting blamed. Venus, let's say, is in Scorpio in the second house. You give advice to in-laws. They're going to blame you. They're going to blame you. Oh, you told us to invest in this stock? We just lost $20,000. The stock is down 50%. And then anytime some conversation comes up, something happens, oh yeah, he told us to invest in that stock. We lost all our money. There's that blame and that pinching of the blame. And so what happens is Venus in the second house normally, without being the Atmakaraka, will show that the more the person talks, the more a person tells stories, the more the money will come in for the person, the more you're going to make. Venus in the second house If you tell stories, if you talk, money will come in. That's how your money's going to come in. So if you're like a computer programmer, you never talk, you're just like on your computer doing coding. No, you gotta talk. You gotta talk in your living, in your professional living. Whether it's you even purposely contacting some conference that is about to happen, say, hey, listen, I want to give a speech about this, this, and this, because I have been dealing with this for the past 10 years. When you go there, when you do that, somehow Venus is going to begin to dance and Venus is going to bring you money. Now, as the Atmakaraka, you will do the same thing. You should do the same thing. But as the Atmakaraka, you will have to go through these lessons. It's not like you should avoid. Because you have to understand how the world works. You have to understand, look, there's something called people not listening to your right advice. Like, for example, what's going to happen? Let's say your Venus is in Scorpio. You give advice to your in-laws regarding money or regarding wealth. Goes wrong, right? They blame you. But the thing is, you will learn the lesson in your life that people are too impatient. People may not be at a certain level to get this advice from you. Because what would happen is, you gave that advice to the in-laws, stock went down, they lost 20,000, they started blaming you. However, if they're smart enough and they kept that stock, within 4 years, they would have made their $20,000 back plus an additional $30,000. So then the lesson comes in. Lesson isn't that you shouldn't talk. Lesson is, when you do talk, don't just cover half the thing, cover the full thing. That when you give them advice, tell them it could go down, but leave it there for 5 years. You will learn your lesson that even after the best advice, some people will not get that advice. Why? Because as the Atmakaraka, Venus, it clearly shows that in your past, you weren't willing to speak. You weren't willing to talk. You didn't enjoy either taking advice or giving advice. Like, for example, and I was telling you guys about how other planets can change situations. Let's say Venus and Sun are in the second house. I don't care about the sign. If, especially in a man's horoscope, when you say any advice, actually no, both men and women, when you give advice to the family, they will not listen. They actually won't even listen. And you'll keep telling them, see, I told you, I told you, I told you. Because now the Atmakaraka Venus is with Sun, and Sun is in the house of the Queen, which is Venus. So Venus is like, this is my house. Your advice is not going to be, you cannot flounder your sword here. What I say goes. Okay? So now look at the dynamic that becomes. Venus and Sun are there in the second house. You give advice, nobody is listening. But when they see that you were right, because they will then start taking your advice. Because Venus and Sun are together. Now, if let's say Sun was there, it's not going to happen. You're talking to a brick wall. Okay? You're talking to a brick wall that is not going to listen. But with Venus, that dynamic changes. So any planet with Venus will play some kind of a role. Okay, and of course, if you need to know about what planet is playing what role with Venus, you can just go and take my Nandi Nadi course, or especially my combination course, only where I talk about just the combination of each planet with each planet. So you'll understand that dynamic. Like Venus has the Atmakaraka. Now remember, this is the Atmakaraka I'm talking about. With Saturn. Especially a person could get or will deal in like black money. Or may deal with some way of getting money. How would I use this word? Through a back door. Maybe, or like for example, they somehow were able to earn money under the table. Right? Like how I heard so many stories of people in US where somebody was working at some gas station, somebody's working in some Indian restaurant and getting money under the table because they don't have the visa. Those things happen. Okay. But again, that dynamic of that will also specifically will be connected with a sign. That sign has to be present for this to happen. The other thing with Venus in the second house as the Atmakaraka, you will see such people when they eat nice food, when they eat at a luxurious place, okay, it triggers some sense in them connected with their past. You will see with Venus in the second house, if it's not somehow being controlled by malefics, you will see this person when the first time they go to some resort and sit at the bar or some nice restaurant and eat, it'll trigger something that they will not understand. Why? Because in the past, they were dying to eat at such places, and now finally they are. So you see how that's becoming a lesson. And it's not even a lesson, I should say, it's an experience. Atmakarka is about the experience. So maybe you were like this hungry little kid in front of the shop, and you saw all these rich people eating in this particular shop 200 years ago, and you could barely afford a bread. And you're like, I want to be there. I want to experience this. I want to experience this. So now, through your life circumstances and the karmas that you have created, universe gave you Venus as the Atmakarka. That okay, go experience. So this is where it triggers that. Now, if let's say there's malefics, Saturn, Mars, sitting with Venus, it'll give phobia related to something as the Atmakarka. You'll actually be scared of something fancy, something luxurious. Like as the Atmakarka, somebody gives you some silk cloth, you'll never wear it. Or you'll feel like, oh my God, it's just my skin doesn't feel right. So you see how one dynamic of the Atmakarka is completely changing through the other planets. And especially with Venus in the second. Okay. This is a person who will love or want to, and maybe they won't be able to, like I said, with the dynamics of other planets, love collecting gems, love collecting beautiful artifacts. You will also see, especially in women's cases, they will always love to take their friends for a facial. And they will always want to discuss something related to their life when they're doing the facial. Or anything where you are being pampered related to your face. Even let's say maybe doing your hair. And you will have this camaraderie with those people. When you see yourself and other people in comfort with you, you will naturally begin to talk. And that is where you talk if let's say you're a coder. So let's say you're a female, you're doing coding, you're not talking, it's your fingers doing the work. But where you will talk is when you're in that Venusian environment. Venus especially, you will see when Venus is in the second house, as the Atmakaraka. One of the biggest lessons for this person, especially for a male, will be understanding the dynamics of management of money with a co-ruler. Dynamics of managing of money with a you can say partner, of course I mean spouse, but it can also be somebody who's like a managing co-partner of money with you. Maybe both you and your siblings are now managing parents' estate, right? And this is where you're going to learn your big lessons as well. Will it be a mistake or will it just be a smooth ride for you to learn the lesson? That depends on the condition of Venus. Like what happens with Venus as the Atmakaraka in the second house, a person who wants to really grab on to their comfort. Okay? And they want to be able to use that comfort whenever they want. Now the lesson will be, no, half of that comfort is going to be shared by the wife. Half of the comfort will be shared by the spouse. Generally, for both men and women, Venus is this the spouse. Specific character of the wife will be seen through Venus. And because when Venus becomes the Atmakaraka, especially in a man's chart, you will see both you and your wife will have the same behavior. Same lifestyle, same things that you may like or not like. Okay, you will see your behavior in your spouse. Same thing, if let's say your Dharakarka is Mercury, and you go through Mercury Dasha, you will notice both you and your spouse begin to have the same habits, same dislikes and likes. It happens. So Dharakarka Dasha, Dharakarka, we'll cover that in this series. We're going to cover all 7 Karakas, but I'm just giving you a little bit of a tidbit of that. Also Venus in the 2nd house. Okay. Trip to dentist will become quite regular. Okay. Trip to dentist will become quite regular. There is a technique of Venus. It's not like I don't want to share anything. It's just that I don't want to say something that somebody's going to take it the wrong way. Okay. But you're going to go to a dentist. And sometimes quite a bit. And especially if it's somehow impacted by malefic, it's definitely going to be quite a lot. Okay. Venus has the Atmakaraka. Okay. Especially if you have an older sister. Okay. They can become the most impactful person in your life before your spouse. They will be the one teaching you some lesson, or a woman naturally becomes the biggest source of your understanding of life. Like in case of son, somehow dealings of the father and going through life with the father will show you some biggest impactful lessons in life. Okay. So anyway, guys, this was my analysis of Venus in the 2nd house as your Atmakaraka. If you're new to my channel, subscribe below so you don't miss these type of videos. If you want to know where your Venus is placed along with all your astrological details, check out the links here, KapielRaaj.com. Otherwise, we'll see you later.